Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ladies Room Talk Show. I'm so excited that you're here with us tonight, and it's going to be a fantastic show yet again. I have an amazing guest that's really going to be talking about some things that I've been talking to people about, and that's really concerning them. And we need to really take notice. We need to take note of what's going on, and it's so very important that we really pay attention to our teachers. Our teachers are doing a magnificent job out there, but they're doing a hard job, and it's a job that's really challenging them. If you are reading in the news or if you're pulling up different clips and links, you will see that these teachers are dealing with a lot in the state of Alabama. It really is just globally. And so I have someone on the show here tonight that's going to really answer those questions that I have of him, and probably questions that you have too. But of course, we always open up this show for you to be able to answer those questions too. So if you are an instructor, if you are a teacher, doesn't matter if you're in Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Detroit, doesn't really matter. If you're an instructor or if you know of an instructor or a teacher that's in the school system, share this live with your team. Share this live with your friends, tag them, put this in your groups, because we need to get these questions answered. And then those of us who are praying, we need to know how to pray. We need to know how to pray for our teachers, our instructors, our administrators who are in the school system fighting and battling every single day on behalf of our children. So, but before we get started, before I bring our guest in, listen, I want to give a big, huge shout out to an amazing young lady who came on the show last week, Andrea Whitfield. She was the representative of Titusville Connection. Last week, they had a lineup of magnificent artists, spoken word artists, and authors, and playwrights, filmmakers. Everybody was there showcasing their talent amid Black History Month. So that's what they're doing. They're showcasing people who are either from Titusville, Alabama, or have a connection there. And so they were showcasing those talents, and it was just amazing and really had a great time. So make sure you go back and check out that live, because she was able to really share some things. And if you know her, go out there to her page. She had some really great pictures of all of the participants for that event, and it was really great. So without further ado, I want to bring my new friend on and inside the ladies room. This is Richard's first time, but certainly it won't be his last, because I believe that he's going to bring some great information that's really going to help all of us out and get a better understanding of what our instructors, what our teachers, what our school administrators are dealing with every single day. So welcome to the ladies room, Richard Franklin. Welcome to class. How about that?
Well, do I have to raise my hand sometime?
Yes.
No, it's just I'm just honored to be here. Always honored to just have a conversation. Thank you for having an amazing show. I always tell a lot of African Americans, people around the country, we don't have a lot of shows out to express ourselves and what's going on. So I just want to thank you first, and let's get ready. Any questions you have? Hey,
Thank you.
let's go.
But thank you so much. Let's talk about, first of all, what is AFT? Now, is that the American Federation for Teachers, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's American Federation of Teachers.
Okay. Okay.
Nationally, we're an organization that has 1.7 million members. Um, what makes us different from people have been asking, what's the difference between us and NEA? One of the things that's different is if you travel to any urban city, most of the time the AFT is set up in urban cities. The NEA is in suburban cities. In some states, we're merged. But the biggest difference that people see is that, and if you paid attention to what was going on, we don't represent anybody that can hire and fire. We represent the people, like I tell people, that directly work with our children every day. So we don't have conflicts, and we usually anything that they'll say Richard saying, but I'm getting it from the members that I say, it aligns with the parents and students, because the people that I represent, they entrusted me to be their president. They work directly with the students every day. It's a rough time, not just in Birmingham. It's a rough time nationally, in education, worldwide, really. I guess I'll start out to tell people that it's the first time we have dealt with the pandemic. But
Right.
if you go back and study history, President Woodrow Wilson, when they dealt with just the flu at the time, they actually took off education for an entire year, didn't have any type of education. So one of the things I've been telling all educators, especially superintendents, when we start talking about learning loss, every child, everyone's at a learning loss doing this ordeal. And what I try to say to adults is, if you're living in this world and you say COVID hasn't affected you, okay, you need to let me know what you've been doing.
Right.
Uh, so, it affects our kids. And that's why the state of Alabama could not come with an indicator to even determine about a failing school or anything this year, because there were a lot of school systems, affluent school systems that normally do well, that when they took their test, they didn't do so well. So it's a challenge that we all face,
Right.
but we're up to the challenge. But educators are doing an amazing job. We're trying our best to keep the classrooms open, trying to stay safe ourselves. A lot of educators, they have their family, they're human. It's affected them. We were on one of our Zooms last week, and one of the members said they lost 10 family members
Mm.
from COVID. And it just, I mean, I froze, like, just she was just talking. And I don't know if she had ever talked about it before, but we started doing Zooms to try to be a support mechanism to our members, so they could just talk about what was going on, not just in school, but in their personal life during COVID.
Mm. And I tell you, it's I spoke with an instructor, and I'm not sure if she's with Jefferson County or with the Birmingham City. But I asked her how she was doing. It was on a weekend, just a basic question. How are you doing? She said, it's rough out here, Miss Clarissa. She said, I'm teaching in the school system. She said it's rough. And I could tell that she was stressed. I could tell that she was unhappy. And you just automatically assume that teachers, learning it, teaching and teaching, and that teachers should just pivot and just automatically change. But one thing I've come to realize, Richard, is most teachers are trained to teach inside of a class, and they're trained to teach actual students who are sitting before them. And so when you have those types of trainings, you're looking at eye inflections, you're looking at their posture, you're looking at hand participation, and you're looking at their countenance, and sometimes you can see how they're dressed, or look in their eyes, and you can kind of tell if something's going on at home and that sort of thing. And and sometimes you get with that feedback, that interaction, you're doing a great job. And so sometimes it's those little things that people just don't realize, and they think that it's a direct attack against the kids, but the teachers are feeling that same thing, and some people are concerned, the teacher, that the students aren't really being taught to the magnitude that can be taught. But I just don't feel like the teachers are being set up to succeed as they could, because the whole system, or the world as a whole, it's like you said, who knew? I mean, how can you even be prepared for this type of stuff? So it's not anyone's fault, really. It's just making sure that you're making the necessary changes in the time frame that it needs to be changed.
So I've been taking this conversation about COVID for one positive. Those of us that are educators, we often are just, especially in the urban setting, we're always responding to what's wrong. Well, I envision we have an opportunity now, because the world, when we talk about learning loss, it's behind.
Right.
Because you gave the example, we used to just sit in the classroom teaching and learning. Well, we've been debating as adults. I've watched it, and some of it's been insane to me around the world, but especially in the United States, even in Jefferson County, watching the different school districts, we as adults try to make it something that's make it normal. That's not normal. This is
Right.
our new normal right now. And what we do is we debate on, well, they need to stay in the classroom. They need to do this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know any classroom teacher that just woke up and said, hey, I want to just go home. And they
Right.
actually, I remember when we've talked about it, they actually hate it. It's more work on the classroom teacher and on other employees when you do it virtual, remote, because they have to do different lesson plans. They have to put like they have to do it immediately every day. It's different when you're in the classroom,
Yeah,
but I think where we are missing the boat as a country is we were given this federal money to pay for technology. And one of the things that I'm challenging urban districts with is, okay, we just once again bought something and we have no plan. What is the plan? We have an opportunity. The kids, whether they're urban, suburban, wherever, they deal with technology. We as the adults, we're the ones that are not comfortable with it.
that's
Now,
right.
what the educators around this country did an amazing job. People, parents, a lot of people don't realize it. When we shut down and just went and said we're going virtual, there was no training for the educators. We had never done that to that magnitude for that length of time. So one of the things when we were doing our Zoom, we knew we were gonna make mistakes. They were gonna make mistakes. Um, but we said that's not hard because it was the first time you're doing anything, you're gonna make mistakes. But technology has its place. But we also know that in person teaching, that human element, that's what you were talking about. Knowing what's going on. Hey, Jack, what's going on at home? And they talking to you, telling you what's wrong. The teacher, you can make it. It just the human element is, what the interaction that we have. That's the part as adults I don't think we realize when we just talk about school, and it's affected our kids.
Mhm.
But I think we're in a good place, and what I mean by that is to create a conversation. It's no urban system that didn't spend money on technology. So, what is your plan with the technology from this point forward? If COVID ended today, what would we do? Just put down the technology and not use it? I'm saying now, this is as a parent, I've seen technology can be used in a positive and helpful to the teacher if the teacher is allowed or encouraged to use that technology. And that's the challenge that we face in urban settings because we're so used to doing certain things a certain way. And most educators could agree with me. I envision even something as simple as homework. If I just give a quick little story to make people understand. My daughter was going to second grade when COVID hit. That's the critical grade trying to read. I was
Mhm.
very concerned. But the teacher she had, she said, they got iPads. We're gonna be using these different programs, and all I need you to do is just make sure she does the time on it that I tell you that she's supposed to do, and then I'll let you know. And they kept doing it. And then they would go to school sometime, and but most of the time in Birmingham City, we was at home majority of the school year. Well, I just fast forward. This year, her teacher says she's in third grade, but she's reading on the fourth grade level.
Okay.
So, but I saw and trusted the educator,
Mhm.
and she used her strength, to say, "Hey, I can use this technology." So, if used correctly, with the what we do in the classroom, it can work.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that, hey, if we regular said my daughter may be reading on fifth grade level. I'm pretty sure it'd be higher. But
Mhm.
using that technology and what the educators do in the classroom, if we just release them, just let them use their craft, what they went to school for, encourage them instead of I call it strong arm. A lot of things that we're doing right now is very concerning. It's not just Birmingham, but any school setting. If you're putting 40 and 50 kids in classrooms or sitting in the gym, uh, all research shows there's not much learning going on.
Right.
And my whole thing has been I've been reading about stimulating the brain. You know, even though remote when it starts spreading, I would say go home. Don't just send them home. Give them something to do. That's a challenge to the parents. It's our job. When they're at home, and people don't really think about it. We're in Alabama. They'll pop up. We have a tornado. We have a snowstorm. We shut down, and we if we gonna tell the truth, we had no mechanism getting any education, but now we do, and that's the challenge that we want. But we're going through a lot everywhere, but dealing with PPE. Most people don't realize. I've been saying I don't blame any district. They got the federal money, but no district was ever set up to where they could use because they would just be using their general funds at the masses of PPE that they're trying to use. It's a problem nationwide, worldwide, really. Also, the variant that we have now, it travels and it's so contagious. Um, and the situation that was going on in Birmingham, I literally believe that in that 1 week it spread that fast, and the district couldn't keep up with it. Um, but the challenge that I would tell school districts is that don't take it personal when parents or even if the union starts to talk about it or employees. I would say listen to what they say, what they're saying, because they're the frontline workers, and if you don't have
Right,
frontline workers, you're gonna do a disservice to the children.
right.
And I will tell you, you cannot replace them. That's the other thing I'm watching nationally. They're saying just do subs and asking people in the community to come in. And
Mhm.
look, we all have to take a step back when we were in school. If your teacher was missing, they put a sub in there. Usually that class acted a fool.
Oh,
Or
game on.
because they didn't
Game on.
because they didn't have a relation, and that's the relationship piece that people don't really, we as adults, we forget. We get so got to be
Yeah,
done this way, got to be done that way, and it sounds good, but we got to remember we're talking about kids, and you have to have a relationship. So nobody can be replaced, and from the principal all the way down, I've seen it just, it's hard for the schools to function, but people are literally trying their best. I've also seen educators worried about their students, because it's affecting the students really bad. It was spreading fast. And if communication is not well, you're wondering what's going on. So it's a lot of factors that are going on, and I really call it our first responders in this country, the nurses, the doctors. We don't often think about it. If you keep going to the doctor, which we all go to, you don't
right,
think they got a magic button they mash and they just don't catch COVID. No, it's affecting them as well. It's affecting
right.
our police officers. It's affecting our firefighters. But we're, once again, when I first started, we're trying to make this a normal, the way we were living before. We're trying to make that be our normal now, but we got to do it a little different, and we got to
Right.
be smarter.
You know, what are some of the fears that you are hearing out there? Because, and I have children. And so I remember, when I went back to work and I had to put them in a daycare. And, you always want to find the very best daycare. But once you have them for that period of time, and when you put them in the daycare, you already know they're going to catch something. They catch a little sniffles and all this type of stuff because of, obvious reasons they're around other babies and children and such. And so that was a concern for me. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm trying to mask up and keep the babies away from me because I don't want to get sick and I'm trying to help them. And so I can only imagine being an instructor, especially in that elementary age group, and you're working with young kids and they always want to hug on you and all these things, and their attention span is off. They don't wear their mask like they should. Their mask is down here and it should be up here. What are some of the fears that you're hearing? I'm sure that you do have some teachers that are afraid, that have some underlying conditions that they really shouldn't be exposed to any type of environment like that. Do you have some teachers, Richard, who are expressing that they're fearful?
Yes, they've been very fearful. To be honest, everybody I've talked to, from parents, the good part is just the communication. We all are fearful.
Mhm.
What you just got, if people would just be honest, take the title down, just tell the truth. We're fearful. This is another variant, and they're telling us another variant is coming, and we're all fearful. You've seen how it spreads. We've had situations where I can just tell a story. Member call, and they were going to work every day, but they called at 10 o'clock on a Sunday. And I would never forget this as long as I live. They said, "Hey, I got COVID." They're crying. I said, "It's gonna be okay." And they said, "But my husband, he only has one kidney. What if the human element, I think, is what we forget. We look so much for the
Right.
service that they provide, and then they worry about their kids. I've had a member had COVID, calling her student. He had COVID, and his mom died. That's heavy on any death is heavy, period. But
Right.
just some of the things that we're being faced with right now. I just want people to realize is that they every educator, not just in Birmingham, but in this country,
Mhm.
they literally are giving their life. A lot of our workforce, if you just Google it, a lot of women. Before we had COVID, I used to say it's a war on women. So it was an honor for me to be elected as president. But
Right.
I also would say these women, a lot of, and we got some men, but it's majority women, which is the workforce of educators in this country, that are putting their life on the line. But they also, a lot of them have kids at home. So when they putting their life on the line, they're getting sick, and they're also worried about being mother and father. And that's the part that I try to bring to the school systems that we work with. I always tell them safety first.
Right.
Whatever plan you come up with when it's over with, we'll sit at the table with you with the academic piece. But the academic piece, we're not going to reach our goal. Not just Birmingham or urban settings.
Mhm.
None of the school systems are going to reach their goal because it's affected us all. And the beautiful part about COVID, it doesn't care what your political belief is. It doesn't care how much money you have. And I've
Right.
said that on the news. I've heard people, I'm
Yeah.
saying this, I'm going, you can catch it. Hey, you know, and
Yeah.
the beautiful part about COVID, we've seen it. You know, you've seen districts that were refusing to shut down. This variant, the doctors, medical field told us it was more contagious, and we see it. You've seen places shut down that they were saying no, they were going through their political belief, and that's the part I think as adults we all should be doing what's best for children, regardless of our belief, regardless of a child's background. And I will say that's the most important part that I think the educators that I represent. You know, I can just say, you know, I can speak for them. They're giving their life. They're giving their all, and they need a huge thank you. You know, and everything's gonna be okay. We're in this together. I think if we get more of that, we're gonna get through this. But in other states, you just watch what's going on in Michigan. You have people that just they're resigning.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. Some people just like I can't do it. Some people have health reasons, like you said, underlying health conditions.
Mhm.
Um, but I just think that we have a huge opportunity. And COVID, it's I always take a negative and try to turn it into a positive.
Mhm.
We know the fear and everything with COVID. It's no different whether you're a classroom teacher, you're the custodian, you're the principal, you the nurse. You know, that's the other piece people don't really think about. Can you imagine being a nurse working in the school,
Mhm.
and you know you're the only person that's in the medical field, and you may see that it's finna spread, and when you're trying to tell people, trying to explain, but they don't have a medical degree, by the time they realize what you're saying, it's already spread because you're the expert.
Right.
And that's one of the things I've been preaching to most of our our schools, that give that nurse more power.
Mhm.
That nurse is the medical expert. You would not walk into a doctor's office and just tell the doctor, this is what's wrong with me and this is what you need to give me. You're gonna let that medical expert tell you what you need.
Well, Richard, let me ask you this: we're talking about the the medical side of this, and and how we need to be mindful of that, and how the variant is very contagious. What about the mental health of our staff, the mental health of the instructors, the administrators, the mental health of our children? Because the way I'm hearing it is that the mental health is has been targeted greatly for everybody that's in the school system, and they're really having some issues psychologically, mentally, dealing with everything. Is there any type of help or assistance that's out there to help to provide any type of mental health assistance?
I know the city of Birmingham and Birmingham City Schools, they were doing a partnership trying to work on it, but it's a huge endeavor.
Yeah.
And I'll just give an example. That particular teacher that I was talking about, she was dealing with her student that lost his mom. Well,
Right.
I don't even know if it was a month later, she lost her mom due to COVID.
Mhm.
So we're having conversations as the union, and we can tell. You know, you can tell people are burnt out. They need a break. Um, I just we have to remember we're not robots. We're human
Right.
beings, and especially with all of us. Like I hadn't asked you how many family members or friends or people you lost to COVID. How many people I know I lost to COVID. I mean, I'll be honest, I try not to think about it or talk about it. But when you're faced with what we do every day, it's constantly hitting you in the face every day. I mean, we get the phone call. This is one of the things I told the superintendent. I'm going to start giving your number out if you start just because you disagree with something we say, because you're not getting the phone calls when they lose a family member or they're sick and they're afraid. They're calling us, and then we try to reach out to you. But one of the superintendents admitted, Richard, I couldn't deal with it. And that's when I started saying, but we all got to be there for each other.
Right.
It's going to be what our real job is to get through this. But once this is over with, to not just act like we don't need mental health help for everybody.
Right.
It's just like on the academic piece. We can't just act like we're going back to normal. We have to. I believe we have to have plans. I think the federal government has to invest in this from the federal level down to the states. Um, I just think it's not just going to be a simple fix.
Mhm.
This has affected us all, and
Right.
but I don't think a lot of us admit it, that it personally. We talk about it, but we don't say, yes, this personally has affected me, and I'll be the example. Yes, it's affected me.
Mm.
I think if we just get most people to get into those conversations and people start talking, that's when you see, just because they're an educator doesn't mean it's not affecting them. Like I said, I didn't know, but one of my members just said, "Hey, I lost 10 family members."
Mm.
And what it was, one of the superintendents at Dr. Sullivan, at one of the things was saying, he went to some people's funeral, and when we got into a conversation on our Zoom, he just said, "Hey, I had 10 family members lost, and I couldn't go to their funeral because and that's another piece that when she said it made me think, that's real. We go back to when that was going on. That's a mental aspect, especially if you lose someone close to you,
Yeah.
mom, dad, a child, during that time. And we're getting through it, but we need some mental help, all of us. I think we all have had this a trauma that's on all of us.
Well, Richard, what can we as stakeholders? And my daughter, she's a senior in high school now. She is at Ramsey High School. And so I'm still a stakeholder for another couple of months. And so, but as a stakeholder, what can we do as a stakeholder? What can we do? How can we assist? What is just, what can we do? Because we do have a say. When
Yeah.
it comes down to certain things, they come to us as stakeholders, ask us questions, get us to be a part of certain surveys and certain things. And I think a lot of parents don't realize the power that we have as stakeholders. We don't utilize it. And so, what is it that we can do? Because I will say, I think it was either last week or week before, there was going to be a sick out.
Hmm.
Okay. And a lot of people didn't really know that that's what it was going to be. It came out a little bit later, but they had to, close the school down and because of a lack of employees and staffing. So I asked you a couple of questions. I'm real bad at that, Richard. So let me go back to one of them. Okay. I'm real bad at that. So let's just go back to one. Um, what was the big deal about that? The sick out thing.
Well, to make a long story short, it'll make sense. You're a parent. I'm a parent. You know, this is one of those situations where I think I'm not gonna say we all got comfortable, but the educators, they were getting sick and our students. And at the time, Dr. Sullivan, he was sick. And a lot of the administrative staff was sick. And we just found out people started notifying us parents, saying, hey, the numbers are not right. Birmingham uses, I forget which system, and their numbers are always a week behind. And we started notifying them, hey, people are saying the numbers are not right, and classes are double. They're putting kids in the gym, and they were trying to follow up and research, what was going on. And we had an emergency meeting on the Zoom on the Sunday night, just to call to get the feedback from the members. And on that Zoom, every classification that touches the school, bus drive, I mean everything. They started giving us numbers. They was even telling us one I mean just remember off the top of my head, one teacher said, hey, I have 25 kids on my roll. For the last 2 weeks I've only had 6 or 7. uh, educators were saying, hey, we have 24, no, 30, 34 teachers, but we have 20, 21 or 22 that's out. And they knew they had COVID. So we talked to the superintendent and he agreed to shut down Monday and Tuesday, but we also let him know that there was some things had to be put in place because it got to a point where they were not asking, they were telling us, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes. So then we asked them to go back with the numbers, and they listened, but they didn't listen. And by the time Wednesday hit, they were saying that the numbers weren't that bad, and the people that work directly with children, we knew it was that bad. So the funny part, they kept asking me, was it a sick out? Well, yeah, but a lot of the educators were already sick. So
Right.
I do know that on the first day, I don't know how many actually just did a sick out. The district would know, but they had 900 or more employees that were out, and we had almost 600 to 700 students that was out. And we do know a lot of our students had COVID. But we didn't blame them through the ordeal. We just said, hey, we wanted some safety measures put in place. Some things that they on paper they say they have. For example, Ramsey. We met last Thursday with the Dr. Sullivan and his team. They agreed to our memorandum dealing with some issues. One of the things we talked about air purifiers. Uh, we said, hey, we know you don't have a lot of them right now, but in your schools where they're older buildings and they don't have a new ventilation, we would think you would start there first. We said Ramsey. We started saying Avondale, our older buildings where we always have issues before COVID, during COVID. Barrett Elementary is an old school. They've lost, I think it was 3 or 4 staff members. You know,
Mm.
so we would try. Our whole goal is to work with the district, not attack the district. But at the same time, I give kudos to every last one of the educators that stood up because they know it was spreading. They're the frontline workers, and they showed. And it wasn't a parent or student during that time that wasn't understanding to what was going on because it was affecting all of us. And I'm really proud, of the educators, but also our students and parents. And then of the district, when they turned around on Thursday when we met, it was simple things that we had on our paper that we asked for. But I wish it didn't have to come to that. But I really believe when I look back on it, it slowed down. I think the medical experts they told us this variant spreads, and it was spreading so fast. It's still spreading, but it was just for some reason those 2 to 3 weeks within our school district, it was spreading so fast. But we also got to also remember we in Jefferson County, and they
Right.
were telling us we were in a surge. And that was the other thing that I was have told every last school district. You make yourself look crazy if you get on TV and say you don't think it's spreading in your school system, but you live in Jefferson County. Because a school building doesn't protect you from that surge. And it was spreading. It's still spreading. Um, but we took a stand. We did it very professionally. Um, and I guess what I'll say to every parent and student and employee, often in education, we put so much emphasis on who's the superintendent, on who's the chief academic officer, on people that we need those positions. But the most critical people are the people that we entrust when we drive up to a school. They greet our students. They go in the cafeteria, or that bus driver, that teacher, that PE coach. They are the people who are the frontline workers and make the difference with our students. And what I'm proud of them, they showed that, hey, while you may make the decisions, we're the ones with the power. And I think that was the lesson. I hope that was the lesson that was taught to people. It wasn't personal, but when they're sick in any central office anywhere, they're gonna go home. So why are we not afforded the same thing? And that was things I said. It was people in the room, I'm not gonna call their name, they had COVID. It spread. They don't have a magic button. But it was just horrible during that time. And it's still going on, but we took a stand.
I, I don't even know what to say, Richard. And usually I'm not at a loss of words at any time. but I guess it just really hits my heart, dear, because I have a child that's in the school system. Um, and to be honest, when the option came, first everyone was doing virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Then it came as an option to where kids could come to school, and then some could do virtual. It was their option. And so I left that decision up for my daughter to make because I did not want to force her to do something that she was uncomfortable doing as a child, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to I'm not the one that's going to school. She has to feel comfortable doing that, and she opted to continue to do virtual. It was a challenge, of course, but because I have a mother-in-law, 95, 96 years old, COPD, she did not want to bring anything home to her grandmother. And so you have people who are thinking that way. They're thinking, hey, I don't want to bring this home to my mom. I don't want to bring this home to my dad, or, other situations that you have in the house. And so you're right. Everybody has different situations. And what I do, like, I know that from an admin point of view, that there are some issues and things that they have to deal with just to keep these schools open to function, just to be able to have teachers to get their paychecks each month, to make sure that the finances are flowing. I get that. So there's a whole nother dynamic that we haven't really
Mm-hmm.
touched on, that they have to deal with as well. So you have two different ends of the spectrum. You have the boots on the ground, which is what you mentioned earlier, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Our teachers that are right there, they're in it, they're in the grind of it. And then you have the administrators who, these administrators, most of them have been where these teachers are, but now
Yeah,
they wear a different hat. So now they have to kind of march to a different beat. And sometimes people don't really understand their march, their walk,
that's
what
right.
we're getting from that end. So I like what I'm hearing right, and what I believe is what I'm understanding to be the truth, is that AFT is bridging those gaps together. It's bridging the admin and the teachers, bridging it together so everyone can work together for the common good, which is the betterment of these students. Now that's what I kind of hear.
Yes,
Just
yes, and let me say this. You just said the best way to describe when we started off, a lot of people ask the differences. When I say we don't have a conflict, what it does is most administrators, they called us to be honest, when this whole ordeal started with a principal calling us saying, hey, the numbers are not correct. I'll be very honest. But that principal has never been our member. But that principal respects us and know that we care about the students and employees. We didn't have a conflict when we tell the superintendent. I tell some principals, I don't. In certain schools, I don't have to walk in. I'll visit because I just want to visit. I don't go there when there's issues. So I'll tell them if I'm coming, if I get issues, they arise, I bring it to you, let you know, and then we do our job. And anybody, they know how we do it. We're gonna follow whatever the policy is.
right,
But this whole thing, our goal is to make sure the educator has all the tools they need to be successful, so our students can be successful. And a lot of people, what we're doing, what makes us different, I just say, I'm Birmingham. So you can go into Jefferson County. Nobody can dictate to us. We have local autonomy. Whereas with the NEA, which would be AEA here, they have to go through Montgomery. If Montgomery says no, if the NEA say no, I was in conversation with National AFT, our national president Randy Weingard, but just what they say is, what can we do to support you? Even if they disagree with it, they don't have the leeway to tell us. That's the other thing I love about AFT, is that some people say, hey, why are y'all doing this in Birmingham? Well, it's just the way we run our local, and I have some amazing educators. If people tell me, hey, Richard, you're doing a good job, I'll say, hey, we have amazing educators, because they have to entrust in me to see something in me to represent them, and I have to, do my best for them. And we've done a lot for our children. We try our best to, as a union, we've done things like first books. I actually met with some people today in one of our communities, just trying to not just be the union to represent the educators, but become the voice of education for urban students around this country. That's what I think we're lacking. And I often tell people the civil rights movement, people the way they look at Birmingham, why not education piece for urban children? Why don't we, I believe we can start this whole platform on what it looks like and we get it correct. Because kids learn different. But I often tell people we say that everybody would agree that's listening, but in our educational system, we only evaluate learning one way by sitting down, taking a test. We have so many other mechanisms that we can use. If not just Birmingham, but in this country, if we just open our mind up as adults, it's adults in higher levels. I want to say that because there's a lot of dictatorship, a lot of things that parents don't know that they put on superintendents. And if you've been following me, I call that a state superintendent because state superintendent at a meeting told Birmingham superintendent, Huntsville superintendent, Mobile superintendent, and Montgomery superintendent that they couldn't shut down. They could do it on small basis, but then turn right back around and say in the rural areas they could shut down. And but when he gets on the news, he's always said it's a local decision. Well, if it's a local decision, we don't need your we expect our superintendents if they need your as a consultant some help, come to you. If they're not violating any law, and if you didn't want to write a plan for the state, that's okay. But we don't need you trying to dictate to our superintendents or making them a fear. I call it a fear tactic to our superintendents. So that's where we stand with this whole piece. But I think the educators, what they're faced with from the bus drive. I mean, like I don't think people realize that they're getting on the bus and they're like, "Hey, put on your mask." And let's just be fair, they're kids. You telling them to put a mask on, and that's the thing. I listen to like people be talking, but you got to make them understand that hey, we're trying to do it not to be mean. We need you to do it, you know, for your safety. And but when you have adults, now let's also flip it. When you have adults that come on TV and they fight, I don't want to wear a mask. What are we teaching our children? But I will say in Birmingham and in Jefferson County, majority of this region, the places we represent, um, we've had some difficulties in some of our schools and systems, but for the overall part, for the COVID piece, we've really worked well together.
I'm going to jump off topic for a minute. Terry Michael had a very interesting statement here I want to address quickly. She says portfolio assessments are a great alternative to bias standardized testing. What are your thoughts on that, Richard?
Now me and Terry, we've been in deep conversation about that for years because most people don't think about it. Um, Most teachers would know this. A lot of the questions, the way they ask them, when our kids get them wrong, it's the way they did the question. It's biased with the question. A lot of people don't realize it. If you just go through the standardized test, how they do it. These testing companies, the other thing, AFT National President Randy Weingart was really on them. They make so much money off us. Now I would say that the reason you hear them pushing if the state superintendents around the country would really tell the truth, these standardized companies that provide these tests, they make buku, I mean billions of dollars
Mhm.
off our children just to do that. They didn't give them. They got to get their money. And that's the other thing that a lot of parents don't realize. So we have to overall, to me, change the way we evaluate our students, even the way we evaluate teachers. Because I will tell a quick story. You may look at numbers when they say fail in schools, but if you look at the last numbers and you go back 3 years with Birmingham City schools and certain schools, a lot of our schools they were improving academically in certain areas. So you may have your child going to just say a Vestavia, the numbers stay the same. And I've often said, how do numbers stay the same? That's a whole nother conversation I hadn't wrapped my brain around. But I've often said, when they say a school is failing, most people don't know. They're not talking about academics completely. It's
Huh.
also attendance
Mm-hmm.
that people don't talk about. Then a lot on the high school level, it's one grade, 11th grade. When I forgot the name of the test they take that determine they put these in these factors. And no educator came up with that. These are our state legislators that came up with it. And that most parents, if they knew that, that's why I say, hey, don't don't really put credence when they say your child is at a failing school. What you determine as a parent is when you talk to your child, is your child first of all excited to go to school? If you asking your child what are they learning, if they're learning, they're gonna tell you, kids will tell you. Now you gotta also remember as a parent, if that child tell you I don't like such and such teacher, you gotta go a little deeper. Because most of the time, especially when you got a middle or high schooler, I have two high schoolers, when they tell me they don't like somebody, it's usually that teacher that's teaching so well, it's making their head hurt. They're not getting it. And I'll be honest, if we as adults admit it, those were the best teachers. As you got older, you had an appreciation for that educator.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we 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 have an opportunity as educators to voice our opinion. That's what me and Terry talked about that for years. I can remember I was in a teacher's classroom when I worked at Huffman Middle School, and I was working in special ed, and this particular teacher was teaching, and she had this program. I forgot what it was on the computer. My job was to read the questions to this particular student. This student, when I read the questions to him, I didn't have to explain anything. He always scored 100. But when he had to sit there by himself and decipher certain things, we realized he was processing different.
Mm.
And that's when we started talking. I started learning, people learn. So they would label him a certain way. But we said we thought this kid was borderline genius. It was amazing what he could recite, listening to a story. But the way we grade in this country, the way we determine, even with our ACT and SAT, people don't realize it, you know. But that's our challenge as a country, because uh, listen, you're doing this show. I watch your show. You amazing.
Thank
But
you.
most of us watching it, we don't care whether you made A's, B's, C's, D. We just say, hey, she's able to articulate. She's able. So that's a craft within itself that makes you smart. And we have kids right now that can do the same thing. We have kids that can draw and create right now, to me, where they should be making money. But I'm gonna leave where we failed. I know we can do this because I went to the historic Age Parker High School. What a lot of people don't know is that in from every facet, and from political, if you go back to the 60s, 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, some of our top people that we see, Colin Powell's wife, Condoleezza Rice, like I could just keep going on and on. But Nell Carter is the one I want to use as an example. When she was at Parker, she was great. We have great kids now, but what they did is they put on a show. She sung in churches, she sung at schools.
Yeah.
So when she left there, she was on TV and everything. But the high school taught her all of that. So that's our challenge. You know, that we got to get back to that. We got to, when we see not just an academic child, we see that full child, that whole child. And our urban kids are very talented, not just in sports. They can do everything. They're well rounded. But I think we just focusing on one thing. And I think our kids are upset with us. So COVID on the positive end, that's what I was saying. I think the educators, they know this. I've asked Birmingham City Schools, we're gonna sit down with our other districts we represent to set up a team and let the educators sit down with the administrators and let them come up with a true academic plan, with a true technology plan, and show from that day forth what they expect. Then they keep meeting, and what doesn't work, they're able to say, okay, it didn't work. So what do we do?
Right.
So
When I was when Terry brought up the the standardized test. Whenever I think about standardized tests, I immediately go to Good Times. They had Richard. You already know. You know that was a good segment.
That's true.
I always go back. I always go back to that episode because they were so spot on, and that was probably the first time when they were starting to bring awareness, when it really wasn't the end
Right.
thing to start bring awareness to these standardized tests and making us look and say, look, culturally, this is not a this is not the best test to give to everybody when it's culturally based. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I thought about that, and they made it really, really funny.
Yeah.
And then it got to a sad part, I was
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, that's so true. And so I'm so glad that Terry brought that up. And we have some instructors here that are amening you and saying a couple of great things in here in the ladies' room tonight. Richard, I'm so elated that you came tonight. And my goal is that those of you who are watching here, please make sure that you share this in your stories on your Facebook page, and then also share this on your profile picture and tag people, because you're instructors, but there are people who need to hear this information. Is so much a wealth of information has been shared here tonight that's very helpful for parents, stakeholders like myself, for instructors and students, administrators alike. And then understanding what is AFT, because we hear about is it AEA?
AEA.
We hear about that, but we don't hear a lot about AFT. And so to be able to understand what the American Federation of Teachers for
Teachers.
Teachers is all about, and knowing that it's there to bridge the gap of communication with admin and teachers and instructors and students and stakeholders, to understand that if we can all come together united, then we can really be able to kind of navigate through the challenges that COVID-19 presents to us. Because I really don't believe we're over this yet. You just mentioned there's another variant coming, and I just spoke to a good friend of mine today, and they actually are just getting over COVID, but they got the original COVID. So
Wow.
they didn't get Delta or Omicron. They got the original. So all of
Wow.
that is still out here. And so we have to continue to do what we can to be healthy and to stay strong, and to do the things that we need to do to help each other out and look out for each other. So, Richard, listen, I mean, time is so well spent here. This is such an amazing show. Certainly, we'll have you to come back again, especially if you are having more meetings and meeting with more officials and state representatives and all of the superintendents that you're meeting with. Certainly, when you have more information and new things coming down the pipeline, you are more than welcome to come on this platform and come inside the ladies' room and let's talk about it, because people really enjoyed hearing you tonight and enjoyed with what you had to share. And certainly we hope that the things that you shared here tonight can educate us more, because what happened a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with the city school systems is a concern with all of us, but we really didn't have all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted. As stakeholders, we didn't know what was going on. We were listening to the students.
Mm-hmm.
And so the students knew a little bit more than what we did, but we still just did not understand what was going on. We did not know. It was a lot of stuff swimming around, but we just didn't have clarity. And so I'm glad, Richard, that you came on today and you were shedding light on things and kind of really educate us and let us know what is exactly going on. So, Richard, again, hey, you got a virtual key in my book to the ladies' room. Use it anytime you wish. And so, again, we're praying for you and your efforts and the organization. I'm sure being the president of such a magnificent initiative can't be easy. And I'm sure you have your fair share of enemies, but we'll be praying for you that you'll continue doing what you're doing, because we know it's for the betterment of the teachers, the students, the administrators, and everyone alike. So we really enjoyed you being here today. Any final words from you before we close out the show?
Well, I just want to thank you for just bringing me on. And I also want to say, praying for you and your family,
Thank
just
you.
praying for you, and to everybody. We're praying for everybody. It's somebody that's really down. Maybe depressed. You can make it. You can do it. I often tell people what you were upset about 2 weeks ago, a week ago, you don't remember. So don't give up. We believe in you. And I want to thank every frontline worker. That's what I call it, the
Yeah.
frontline workers,
Mhm.
uh, for what you're doing for our children and what you're doing for us. And when I'm saying that, I'm talking about our doctors, nurses, our firefighters. I could keep going. I just love you because you're making us. You're taking care of us. Let's be fair about it.
Mhm.
Every group I just named, they're the ones who are taking care of us right now, and I recognize it, and we want to let you know we appreciate you, and we love you, and we can't say that enough because I know you don't hear it. You just expected to do a job, and they don't tell you thank you.
Mhm.
So thank you. Job well done. Continue to do what you do. Uh, and next time we be on it, I hope we talk about some. Hope COVID could be, slowed down a little bit, and we
Yeah.
talk
Let's talk
about
about
some
some
other
other things.
stuff.
Yes,
But
that's
if,
what I
but if
want.
not, we're gonna continue to do what we have to do.
We gotta do what we have to do. Yes. Maybe when you come back, maybe in the spring, we'll talk about the summer programs that are coming up,
Okay.
that kids can be involved in. They're still safe, but there's going to be coming down the pipelines. Maybe we can talk about that.
Oh, that's fine. Because I did tell the district the other day, give us more information, like the different clinics they have. I'm waiting on the information that community people can go to certain clinics. We were
Yeah.
just thinking, hey, it was just for employees. Everybody needs to know that because it's
Mhm.
hard to get a test sometimes. Y'all know when the surge get, you need that vaccine. It's kind of hard to get to those things
That's right.
when it's getting heavy. So it's some resources that Birmingham City Schools has
Mhm.
invested in that the entire city of Birmingham and really outside of Birmingham need to know about it.
Yeah.
So I bring a lot of that information back because at the end of the day, we have to be there for one another and uplift one another.
Right.
And we appreciate you just having this platform to even deliver this message. And we hope everybody listen. And if you didn't agree, don't be too angry with us.
That's right.
But
Don't shoot the messenger. Hey.
right, well, that's what I told. Somebody said you just delivered a message just so different. I said, well, it's a serious matter.
It is.
It's
It is.
really life or death in a lot of these situations.
Yeah.
And I, that's the way I look at education anyway.
Mhm.
Our kids, especially urban kids, we don't have too many opportunities. So we got to get it right, and that's why I always say I appreciate all the educators because I wouldn't be where I'm at. Yes, I had my mother and father, grandmother, but I've had some amazing educators along the way that's made the difference in my life.
Mhm. All right. Words from a great man with great words. We appreciate you, Richard Franklin. Thank you so much for hanging out with us inside the ladies' room. Guys, listen, stay safe, stay the course, and happy Black History Month. Listen, we just don't want to restrict it just for February because, from what I understand, different states are trying to pull Black history out of the curriculum in every state in this school. We cannot, we must not, we shall not let that happen. Let's keep our eyes and ears peeled. Let's stay on the ground. Let's start watching and looking at things, reaching out to our state representatives, letting them know our concerns, because the more they hear from us, that gives them more fuel to be able to fight for us. We cannot let that happen because Black history is history, period. So maybe that's a conversation we can talk about
Oh
later.
yes, yes,
We'll do.
yes.
Let's come back before the month is out and talk about that.
Oh yes, because I can touch on that big time. A lot of people don't know Dr. King wrote books, and I can talk about that. And
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Yeah, we're gonna talk
yeah,
about Black History Month. Well, guys, Richard Franklin will be back inside the ladies' room. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, guys, stay the course, be safe. Keep your social distancing, guys. Up those vitamins, please, please, please. Do what you can to take care of yourselves. We love you guys so much. Stay the course, and we'll see you next Monday right here inside the ladies' room. Good night.